The ripples of silence become distorted. Regularly lapping sound grains intermingle with the reverberations of a dream one day, melting into wavelengths that have no boundaries, like the repetitive waves of distant thunder reverberating forever at the end of time and space. The sound chips away at the memory, and the memory distorts the sound. The sweet, gentle distortion is not a sharp break but a smooth, twisted trajectory. Minute deviations creep into invisible gaps, and the slightest deviation changes the texture of time. Orderly madness, disorderly disorder in the midst of order. Echoes are transformed in repetition, forgetting their original form and standing in the distorted reverberations. What once existed has now dissolved into distortion, but it will never disappear. The rippling reverberations of consciousness caress the contours, quietly distorting them. The memory that was once a straight line is now a gentle curve, absorbed into the folds of time that have folded over and over again. The landscape in front of me slowly expands and contracts, and the boundaries of color blur. A voice echoing in the distance repeats the same melody with a slight wavering. Pulses of time, equally spaced like pleasant waves, resonate, shifting their phases little by little. Irregularity embedded in regularity. Subtle shifts lurking in the depths of repetition. That is the soft distortion of this world. We give ourselves over to this distortion. They may look the same, but they are never the same. Cracked light, distorting in layers like ripples, quietly traces the eardrums. The boundary between the past and the future wavers. Yesterday's dreams dissolve into today's reverberations, and nameless noises fill the gaps in our hearts. The distorted time axis. Fragments of memories being reframed, and gentle distortions continue to expand in the back of our consciousness. But the distortion is not a frenzy. Like the breath of a sleeping star gently, softly blurring the contours of the world. With each shimmering ripple of glass, the silence slowly begins to distort. The distortion spirals and bursts into a faint bubble of sound that eventually returns to its original form. But the sound drags on the memory. It seeps into the air in a transparent reverberation, and eventually gives birth to another distortion. Countless ripples come and go and continue to mark slightly different trajectories. The same melody, but with slightly different tones. Repeatedly, they head somewhere. A small modulation buried in the silence. It is a minute crack in the spine of time. The past shakes the shadow of the future, and the future modulates the whispers of the past. The sound continues to blur. It echoes silently on the boundary between light and darkness. The ripples of echoes are still quietly distorted, overlapping the surface of time. The boundary between yesterday and today melts in minute vibrations, and even the once certain contours blur into a faint white in the gentle distortion. The phenomenon of repetition is indeed an invisible variation that is uniform, yet slightly modulated, slipping into another phase. The reverberation of time, soft yet surely shaking. A melody that is familiar, yet transformed into another melody when you realize it. It is a deception of self-identity or a miracle of continuity. The distortion is not a breakdown. It is a delicate misalignment, an exquisite deviation, as if an invisible vibration breathing secretly behind the universe. It is a sound that slowly collapses and then rises again in silence. There is not a muddle but a new harmony. Just as light shimmers in the atmosphere, sound is reborn in distortion. Sight refracts, hearing reverberates, and touch picks up minute vibrations. What is repeated is never the same. There is a world of countless waves intertwined and reconstructed with invisible fingers. The past mutates in repetition, taking on a new color each time it is recalled. The illusion of solid memory is in fact a mirage that sinks in gentle distortion. Those who refuse to change and those who embrace change. Distortion is not bankruptcy but a sign of evolution, and the minute deviations hidden within the norm are the embryo of the next order. The root of the universe is filled with waves of vibration and probability. The smallest unit of existence is determined while fluctuating and repeating, branching out into countless possibilities. The world itself is the product of gently repeating distortions. Distortion is not brokenness. It is a delicate shift, an exquisite deviation, as if an invisible vibration secretly breathing behind the universe. It is a sound that slowly collapses and then rises again in silence. There is not a muddle but a new harmony, a reverberation that trembles slightly in the depths of the clear air.